Now to a CNN exclusive. The U.S. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett is defending her vote to overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade abortion ruling. In a new memoir just out, CNN has obtained exclusive access, at least so far, to this memoir. Justice Barrett writes this: "The court's role is to respect the choices that the people have agreed upon, not to tell them what they should agree to." In the book, Barrett also talks about religious bias and how she makes her decisions.
With us here is CNN's chief Supreme Court analyst, Joan Biskupic. Joan, Amy...
she's been criticized quite a bit as of late, Amy Coney Barrett, referring to, in the way that she is kind of like, kind of like not towed the line or not done the things that people believe that she should have done. And I can kind of see, I can definitely see the argument behind it. Because there have been a couple things that have been like a little bit out of left field, but I think a lot of people kind of saw coming. But when it comes to this issue, I mean, even like super liberal justices were like down with, like, they understood that the law was bad, whether or not they agreed with abortion or not, or not. They understood that the foundation of the law was just not good. It wasn't appropriate. It wasn't written appropriately. It just wasn't. And so, her defending this, people say it's religious, people say it's whatever. When it came, Ginsburg's, she stated that, she didn't think it was an appropriate law.
Coney Barrett is arguably the most important justice on the bench. Tell us about her book and specifically the Dobbs decision.
Sure, you're right. She's arguably the most important justice on a court at such a crucial time in America, testing how much it will check President Trump's effort to really remake the country. Roe v. Wade, ensured a national right to abortion, and it was in place for nearly 50 years. When the justices rolled it back in 2022, Justice Amy Coney Barrett signed on to Sam Alito's opinion, but did not write anything separately. So this is the first time that she's actually saying why she did that. And what she talks about is why the court was permitted in this case to turn its back on precedent. You know that one of the foundational principles of the Supreme Court is loyalty to precedent. And this was a 1973 ruling that they were tossing out. And she said that decision should not even have existed in the first place because it did not rise to the level of a true constitutional right. She said that constitutional rights should be, implicit constitutional rights should be embedded in American history. And here's what she said: "The evidence does not show that the American people have traditionally considered the right to obtain an abortion so fundamental to liberty that it goes without saying in the Constitution. In fact, the evidence cuts in the opposite direction. Abortion not only lacked long-standing protection in American law, it had long been forbidden." In fact, what she was saying is it sort of flouted the democratic process. But as you know, the Constitution is there to be interpreted to protect minority rights, not to necessarily adhere to the will of the American majority.
What else?
When she's saying minority rights, she means, the not the majority, right? She clarify that because it's not there to protect minority rights. That would be retarded.
What else does she reveal in this new book about her decision-making process?
Right. And Wolf, that's crucial for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of lawyers and others will be reading it just for that because, as Pamela said, she is this swing vote justice. And she acknowledged that when she was on the outside of the court looking in, she thought that many of the rulings were cryptic, that people didn't understand what they were saying. But she writes in her book that she understands now why they did that, because so many times they have to gloss over some issues to get a majority. And then she gave one interesting anecdote about, just how she writes her opinions, the drafting process that she goes through, the kinds of ways that she works with her clerks. And then once she essentially launches a draft opinion out to the other justices and sees it circulate, she says they watch carefully to see who's going to sign on and who's not going to sign on. And she related this one anecdote of sending out a particularly difficult opinion and her clerks watching anxiously to see what happens. And once they immediately got enough votes for the 5-justice majority, they uncorked an impromptu bottle of champagne, which sounds, frankly, not like Amy Coney Barrett, who's very controlled and disciplined, but it shows the stakes of some of these cases and how important it was that she got a majority in that
says
moment.
a lot.
But she did not say which case that was.
Ooh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a super interesting world. I know quite a few attorneys, and you know, some of them are brilliant, some of them are retarded. I would hope that many of these Supreme Court justices are more on the brilliant side. But yeah, it's a totally different world, and a lot of us will never really understand, you know, the legal minds and what they have to go through, and what they have to know, the knowledge base that they have to have in order to, you know, you would hope that your opinion is being formed by these massive volumes of information, right? And they're not being formed by society in general. Right? You have to look at the letter of the law and interpret it, and think about what it's trying to say. What are the limits that it's trying to, what are the boundaries, right? What are the limits of the law? What can we and we cannot do that's legal? Yeah, super interesting. I just thought this was a pretty cute little video on Amy Coney Barrett and her new book and her new decision. If you can, please hit the subscribe button. Just one little click. Thank you so much. I'm John Soto. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.